rent a pastor, right?
Yes.
So I want to show you the connection between the church and Luciferians, okay? The church and Luciferians. And this is where you need wisdom, because you may decide to donate funds to a charity, but and you think it's a Christian charity, but it's actually run and owned by Luciferians. That's why you got to understand Revelation, because Revelation, the beast teams up with the whore. The whore is the false church. The beast is Hasatan. Okay? And the whore rides on the beast. So I'm gonna show y'all 2 videos, and we'll pick the rest up tomorrow. Next week. All right.
Grand Evangel. What in the world?
Now I want you to listen. I want you to listen to what they're telling you, because, like I say, remember what I told y'all, the vision the Most High showed me. He said, this is like a card game. Well, I'm gonna allow the enemy to dip his hand one time. If you don't see it, you're gonna miss it. This is a season where I'm gonna allow you to dip, because you got chip on the table, and I don't want you to lose your chip. I'm gonna allow the enemy to dip his hand, pick it back up, see it when he dips it. So just check out what they're saying.
To give the impression of the moral high ground, the Soros Network funds what they call evangelical and Catholic mascots.
So you have to understand that much, because there's a person that has just come on the scene that we have just started talking about the last 2 years. Nobody has even been talking about this dude. But this dude has been around for 40 to 50 years.
He's been revealed.
The Most High is allowing him to be revealed. Keep in mind what Yeshua told you. Yeshua, when he was talking to the disciples, he says, many antichrists have already come. That's what Yeshua said.
Do you think it's possible that he is the Antichrist?
I don't know, but I believe he's a type and shadow of an Antichrist. Okay? I believe he's a type and shadow. All right? So let's go back.
Who is this? You mean Obama?
No.
George Soros.
This is George Soros. Yeah. But I'm going to show you who is under George Soros. What religious organizations is under George Soros? Okay.
To give the impression of the moral high ground, the Soros Network funds what they call evangelical and Catholic mascots to serve as surprising validators for their anti-Christian projects and candidates. Imagine the evil of using a Christian front to de-Christianize the culture and nation. In this video from the New America Foundation, an executive admits their rent and evangelical model of social change.
Doing a rent and evangelical, as we call it on the security side, rent general model.
The network funds religious groups, including Jim Wallace's Sojourners, PICO, Faith in Public Life, Faithful America, Richard Simon's New Evangelical Partnership, Telos, J Street, National Council of Church, Evangelicals for Human Rights.
So when you look at the National Council for Church, they're under George Soros. When you look at the Evangelical Council,
This dude could be the Antichrist.
they're under George Soros.
This dude could be the Antichrist.
I don't think I could.
Now now they're gonna show you, and you can look this up for yourself. Keep in mind, George Soros is worth about $50 billion. He gives at least $13 billion a year away to support all his organizations.
Catholics in Alliance for the Common Good, Catholics for Choice, and through the network.
Catholics stand with Planned Parenthood. Catholics for Choice.
National Immigration Forum.
National Immigration Forum.
Fund religious groups advancing open borders, amnesty, and voter registration for their new America. Are these groups transparent about the Soros network funding? Not typically. In a 2010 interview, Reverend Jim Wallace, a longtime leader of the movement, was asked if his sojourners is funded by Soros. Here is Reverend Wallace's response in his own voice.
No, we don't see money from Soros. Definitely, the financial crisis of non-profits there, and was putting up. Why does he should call Soros and ask him to send us some money? No, we don't receive money from George Soros. Our books are totally open, always have been. Our money comes from Christians who support us and who read sojourners. That's where it comes from.
Soon, grants from Soros to Wallace disappeared from the Open Society website. So when journalists found the money trail, Wallace was forced to admit the truth. Rather than advancing the whole counsel of Scripture as the highest love for people and culture, these useful ministers assist non-Christian policies, projects, and politicians with faith works, politics, organizing, and media to confuse Christian and other value groups, to recruit the church into their radical political positions, and to help the left
Say this. Now,
politicians get elected.
it was actually a George Soros funded organization called Acorn that got Obama elected.
Yeah, that's right.
I say no in the world enough Americans went to no polls and voted for no Barack Obama. A no-name person. I say ain't no way. But it was Acorn, an organization funded by George Soros that got Obama in office. That's why Obama pushed his number one agenda. Two agendas was LGBT agenda and illegal immigration agenda. Now we're gonna talk about the Hebrews, because keep in mind, this is a man that the Hebrews fell in love with and couldn't understand why I despised him. So that's one. I'm gonna go to the other one real quick here. Hold on.
This is crazy. Well,
Really,
You know what?
If you're not clear on what season we're in right now, I don't know how you can. This is crazy.
Let me see here. Now, let's look at this one more, and then we got one more after this. So this one is only 8 minutes long, and then we got one more. Because I want everybody to get to know this man, because this man is the boss right now. Well, he's been a boss for a long time.
Of all the financial titans and philanthropists of the 20th century, none are more
Listen
complex
to
or
this. This is
mysterious
an
than
old.
George Soros.
This is an old video, but I want you guys to listen.
Like Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers, he amassed billions through ruthless business decisions. But now George Soros is worried. He thinks the global economy is coming apart at the seams, and that the world needs to be protected from people like George Soros. Right now, his Quantum Group hedge fund moves $14 billion of rich investors' money around the world every day, looking for profits and answering to no one. Soros makes huge bets on whole countries and economies. Last year, when he saw cracks in the Asia boom.
Now, keep in mind, George Soros don't bet on stocks. He bets on countries, not on stock. He got us playing the stock market. He shaped the countries.
Began selling the currency in Thailand. Traders in Hong Kong followed suit, triggering a financial crisis that plunged much of Asia into a depression. In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia, all over them.
And he's behind the financial collapse that they're trying to form in the United States right now. I told the United States, humble yourself. You don't think that you can go down? I said, these people have brought many nations down. Many nations down.
The last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia, all of the above. All of the above. Are you that powerful?
No, I think there's a great misunderstanding.
The Prime Minister of Malaysia said that the region spent 40 years trying to build up its economy, and along comes a moron like Soros with a lot of money, and it's all over. He called you a criminal.
It's easier for him to blame an outside force than to admit that they were mismanaging.
An outside force.
He told
He
him
didn't
to
say,
stop.
he didn't say it's easy for you to blame me. He's finna to blame an outside force. Who talk like that?
Their economy and their currency. The French finance minister talked about hanging speculators from lampposts. I think that I've been blamed for everything. I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do.
What's it like to have a statement that you make?
Wait a minute,
Have
wait
such-
a minute, wait a minute. Do you understand how powerful of a statement that was right there?
Yeah.
I'm in it to make money. I do not care about the social so you can go into poverty, I don't care. I'll destroy everything about your country to get to make $1. The love of money.
Money's the root of what?
Oh,
Serious, grievous consequences. I mean, you can, it looks to me like in a number of situations, you can take a position against a currency or make a statement, and the whole country falls apart.
But it's a tremendous sense of responsibility, actually. And it is also a humbling experience because I am actually trying to do the right thing. And sometimes what I do has an unintended negative consequence, as it did in Russia.
Now, you gotta understand who these jokers are. They're all connected. Him, Bill Gates' wife, they are the ones going into African nations along with the Clintons and destroying African nations, giving vaccines, killing Africans by the thousands. No, by the millions. He, along with the Clintons, was the ones who was behind destroying Haiti with the Clinton Foundation.
So James, I mean, compared to the Rothschild and the Bilderberger, all the other, he's bigger than they
Oh,
are.
he on a whole nother level. George Soros on a whole nother level. You just wait. He on a whole nother level.
Has an unintended negative consequence, as it did in Russia.
Last month, he brought the First Lady with him for a look at some of the projects his foundation is funding.
Mr. George Soros?
While hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were being shipped off to the death camps, George Soros accompanied his phony godfather on his appointed rounds, confiscating property from the Jews. These are pictures from 1944 of what happened to George Soros's friends and neighbors. You're a Hungarian Jew who escaped the Holocaust, and you watched lots of people get shipped off to the death camps.
I was 14 years old. And I would say that that's when my character was made.
In what way?
That one should think ahead, one should understand and anticipate events, and one is threatened. It was a tremendous threat of evil. I mean, it was a very personal experience of evil.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
Yes. I mean, that sounds like an experience that would send lots of people to the psychiatric couch for many, many years. Was it difficult?
Not at all. Not at all. Maybe as a child you don't see the connection, but it created no problem at all.
No feeling of guilt.
No.
For example, that I'm Jewish, and here I am watching these people go. I could just as easily be there. I should be there. None of that.
Well, of course, I could be on the other side, or I could be the one from whom the thing is being taken away. But there was no sense that I shouldn't be there, because that was, well, actually, funny way, it's just like in markets, that if I weren't there, of course I wasn't doing it, but somebody else would be taking it away anyhow. In other words, whether I was there or not, I was only a spectator. The property was being taken away.
Are you religious?
No,
Do you believe in God?
no.
Soros told us he believes God was created by man, not the other way around, which may be why he thinks he can smooth out the world's imperfections. Part of the reason he is so rich is that the Soros hedge funds operate offshore in the Netherlands Antilles to avoid scrutiny by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So even while Soros tells Congress and the Treasury that hedge funds must be regulated to stop the global crisis,
So he's actually the one that's bossing Congress and all them around.
voiding the rules. Why is it that Americans can't invest in the quantum fund? It's an offshore fund. Why is that?
Because the fund is not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We are not
Licensed to do business in the United States.
That's
Because
because we are not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Because we find it more convenient to operate without it.
so in some ways it's to escape regulation.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So
She's
he
been
wants us
sitting
to
here
have
talking
regulation,
about
but he don't
the
want
need for regulation.
Yes, and whatever regulation.
He said there's a need for regulation, but
Not for me.
but they don't apply to us.
You don't answer to any.
Because all the money, to be honest, the best place to invest is foreign exchange, that kind of stuff. They got us in the SEC. But he's like, I don't even deal with that. We make all our money somewhere else, but y'all can't play. Y'all not allowed to. This is for us.
Because we are not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Because we find it more convenient to operate without it.
So in some ways it's to escape regulation.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. We all penalized.
She's been sitting here talking about the need for it.
Yes, and whatever regulations are imposed, we will obey. We already
Your money manager told us that you know George really does think he's a god.
Thinks he's a god.
Did y'all see that statement?
Yes.
Let me back it up.
Wow.
I think to myself as a god.
She's been sitting here talking about we does think he's a god.
I want you to read this statement by George Soros.
Wow.
Hey, James, can you read the statement for us?
It says, this is George Soros says, I admit that I always harbored an exaggerated view of my self-importance. To put it bluntly, I fancied myself as some kind of god.
I'm trying to tell people this.
So this is how Black Lives Matter come on the scene. Black Lives Matter comes on the scene. 3 simple lesbian black women.
One with the train.
Yeah, 3 simple lesbian black women. Because we're talking about the moral compass of the thing, the moral compass of America. They felt like they needed a voice because the heterosexual community was not allowing them to be a voice for black people. So they come on the scene and they formed Black Lives Matter, but they needed funding. George Soros is actually, Black Lives Matter is actually another company under George Soros. So that's how these 3 black women are all on television now, all in different countries, and it's become the largest voice for black people in America right now is a George Soros company. And guess what they're trying to do? Their goal, George Soros is using them all. Antifa is the white arm of George Soros' organization. And they're both right now is on assignment to cause as much chaos as possible. Because the Luciferian motto is order out of what? Chaos.
So what we're waiting on is the next chaotic event to happen.
The next chaotic event to happen. That's what you're witnessing right now. So all we're witnessing, no disrespect to anybody with COVID, but all of it ties into everything. It's a chaotic event so they can come on the scene and bring order. And guess what you'll do? You're welcome. Because you'll say, oh, things are so crazy right now, we need somebody. And they'll come and you're going to listen to everything they tell you to do. Because you're going to think that they're the solution to your answer. That's actually how the Antichrist comes on the scene. When all chaos is breaking loose, he comes and he brings everything under his umbrella and he begins to declare peace, peace. And Yeshua says they shall be declaring peace, peace, when sudden destruction shall come upon you.
Right.
Y'all gonna be sitting back, hopefully not the people in this room, relaxing under their umbrella. Now you're gonna be lost a lot. You're gonna be lost a lot of what you work for, but you're gonna be like, you know what, it's worth it for our country to not have a virus, for our country to not have this, for our country to not have that. And you're gonna be sitting back relaxing, be half broke. But guess what? You're gonna be crying peace, peace, and the Most High says, when sudden destruction shall come upon them. So let me finish up here. So I'm going to show you the next video how he ties into the Democrat Party. Granted, some Republicans on that team, but he owns the Democrat Party. Now, right now, this is a list. Now, you got to catch this because it's going to run quick. This is a list of all the organizations that falls under George Soros' umbrella. If any that point out to you, call them out. Any that you see that you're familiar with, call them out. Now, these all look like good organizations. Black Lives Matter right there. Catholics for Choice is right there. Catholics for Free Choice is right there. Children's Defense Fund is right there. These are all umbrellas under George Soros' organization. What is the name of his organization? Open Society. Open Society. He controls courts, judges, everything. That's why now you're trying to understand Trump appoints 2 Supreme Court justices. He thinks we got the advantage now. He appoints what's the name of him? I'm trying to think of the 2 names.
Neil Gorsuch.
Neil Gorsuch.
And Brett Kavanaugh.
Brett Kavanaugh, thank you. So he thinks we got it now. We got the majority. They already got John Roberts. John Roberts is the man. Guess what happens? He loses the last 2 important things that he needed. He loses the LGBT battle. He thinking, how did I lose this? We got the majority. I appointed these people. But guess what? Judge Roberts turns on him because George Soros owns the courts. George Roberts supposed to be conservative, but George Roberts turns on him. So Roberts was the vote that gave the LGBT the legal rights of marriage and all that from the Supreme Court. So now he deals with DACA. DACA was the illegal immigration law that Obama put in place. Totally illegal. He thinking, now I can get rid of this. Guess what? Judge Roberts says, no, you can't. He looking at Judge Roberts like, oh, I thought you was on our team. Judge Roberts is now trying to secure his legacy. He knows your team loses. Your team loses. Because guess what? George Soros also has criminal courts under his organization. George Soros is a boss. Democrat Alliance, Democrat Now, Democrat Party, DNC, Equal Justice Works. That's why you see these people pushing these equal justice laws and nothing ever changed.
Ford Foundation.
National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, National Immigration Forum, Open Society Institute, of course, People of Color in Crisis. That's where he gets his what we call free slave labor from. And you wonder why your children go to college, get these degrees, can't find no job.
He has the power to buy politicians. It just,
Of course.
yeah.
You gotta understand. You gotta understand. So now let me go somewhere else real quick. I gotta show you. Now this is a connection you have to make right here. So when you watch the media, I asked the guys the other day, I said, when you watch the media, who are you watching? What are you watching? So let's break down the media. Because this is where most people get their information from. And I said, no. I said, I'm not asking what are you watching? I'm asking who are you watching? So let's just break down the media. So we got ABC news executive, producer, name is Ian Cameron. That's Ian Cameron right here. He is married to Susan Rice. Susan Rice was Obama's national security advisor. So CBS president is David Rose. He is the brother of Ben Rose. Ben Rose was Obama's deputy national security advisor for strategic communications. Let's go to ABC again. ABC news correspondent, the chief news correspondent, name is Claire Shipman. That's her right there. She is married to former White House press secretary Jay Carney. ABC News again. And Univision reporter Matthew Jaffe is married to Katie Hogan, Obama's deputy. Now, here's why I got to give Obama credit. Obama says, if we want to control the narrative, let's just hire all the people who own the news and put them on our administrative political staff. And you wonder why you turn on this television and all you hear is one-sided story that deludes your mind. That's all y'all listening to is people that has been hired by political parties. If you would have studied who they were, you would have known this. So you got ABC president. His name is Ben Sherwood. He is the brother of Obama's special advisor, Elizabeth Sherwood. There's a picture right there. Then you got CNN News, the most wicked of them all. The president name is Virginia Mosley. She is married to former Hillary Clinton's deputy secretary, John Niles. So they did a brilliant thing. The Obama with Hillary there, they said, let's just hire all the news media to be part of our administration. That way, we control the whole news. We control the entire narrative.
So they're all in bed together.
All in bed together. All in bed together. All in bed together. It was a brilliant strategy. It was a brilliant strategy. If Antoine owns the news, if he owns CNN, it would be brilliant for me to hire Keisha as my national secretary. I know all Antoine is going to do is speak what I want him to speak. I got to give credit. Brilliant strategy. But the strategy is right in front of your face. The problem is you don't know who these people are. I said, you're not watching anything. All you're doing is listening to an administration that doesn't have power, but they still have what we call media power. So they were like, no problem. We may not be sitting in the seat, but we still control their minds. Because guess what? They're going to look at this. This is where they get all the information from. They ain't going to research nothing. They ain't going to do nothing. All they're going to do is listen to us. So that's why, even though you had the lowest Black unemployment in history, the highest stock market in history, I mean, housing market going through the roof, you done bought your house for $200,000, now it's worth $350,000. And Black folks, Hebrews, who finally at a place where they gain a little wealth, are saying, we want them gone. We need Obama back. I said, do you know what it looked like on Obama? Obama had the highest Black unemployment in 50 years. It went all the way up to 17.8, something that you had never heard of. And then guess what? Coronavirus hits. The black unemployment goes from 3.8 to over 30% now. And black folks are still crying for a new king. So how did now the last video, how did black folks get this deceived? Who was in bed with who that caused you to pledge your allegiance to the founder of the KKK? Because that's who the Democrats are. Now, I'm not saying the Republicans are, I'm just giving you history. I'm not telling you to run the Republican Party. I'm telling you why you support your oppressor at the level that you do. What would cause Hebrew people to fall in love with an organization that they hate, which is the KKK? Let's see who is in on this deal. This is the last one. I'm gonna show y'all who is in on this deal.
Hey, James, before you start the video, can you talk to us about why the black vote historically has always been Republican? Well, should have always started out Republican.
Why?
I should say why that is.
Let me go into that next week because it's about a 15-minute dissertation on that. Okay, we'll answer that next week. So I'm gonna show you one short video. And this is one that most people have no knowledge of. Now, we're only going to watch the first 4 minutes of this. And I want y'all to listen to what, now understand, Malcolm X, you gotta really research Malcolm X, because Malcolm X was actually a man on a journey to find the Most High.
True.
He changed his views probably 8 different times as he began to get closer to the Most High, right? And then he discovers the wicked plans that's going on that involves Hebrew people. And he was like, oh, this is the end of this. So I want you to listen to him, and then I'm gonna show you one last video to really go deeper into this.
With regret, with great regret, there's no organization in this country that could do more for the struggling black man than the Black Muslim movement if it wanted to. But it has gotten into the possession of a man who's become senile in his old age.
Okay, before I do that, I gotta ask you guys a question. I'm gonna show you a picture. And I gotta ask you a question. You've seen this picture already. You guys probably can't see this picture, but I want you to look at this picture real quick. Tell me what you see. Look at this picture real quick. Okay, you said it already. This is the original KKK's uniform. You see?
It doesn't even look like a person's face in there.
No. Look at the symbol. This is original.
Oh,
this is original KKK uniform. It has a star and crescent moon, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is the man that he's going to talk about. This is their symbol also. Same symbol that's on the original KKK uniform. Okay? Now you got to ask yourself. Now this is where black deception comes in. You got to ask yourself, what do the KKK and the old Muslim movement with Elijah Muhammad have in common? What do they have in common? Well, let him tell you. Since he was powerful in this movement, let him tell you.
Doesn't realize it. And then he has surrounded himself by his children who are now in power and want nothing but luxury and security.
He's talking about Elijah Muhammad.
And will do anything to safeguard their own interests. So I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization. It was not a criminal organization at the outstart. It was an organization that had the power, the spiritual power, to reform the criminal. And this is what you have to understand. As long as that strong spiritual power was in the movement, it gave the moral strength to the believer that would enable him to rise above all his negative tendencies. I know, because I went into the movement with more negative tendencies for the betterment of the community by any means necessary. And since tonight we had to get into this old nasty negative subject, we didn't want to bring up our program. We're going to have
Now it's gonna fast forward.
the African nation, we became
We're
proud
fast
of it.
forward.
And we became proud of it. We began to have something.
That's okay. We're fast forward to where we need to go. Now, this is where you gotta listen. Because this supposed to be part of this interview. But somebody asked a question. He was bold enough to answer it. Probably what got him killed. Because this supposed to be part of this interview. What he's getting ready to talk about now is something that most people don't understand.
I never heard of it.
Conspiracy between black Muslims and the white wing of this country. Would you elaborate?
So the guy asked him, he says, there's a conspiracy between the black Muslims and the right. Elaborate on it. So let's listen to what he says.
The conspiracy between the Muslims and the right wing in this country. I know for a fact that there is a conspiracy between the Muslims and the Lincoln Rockwell Nazi and also the Ku Klux Klan. There is a conspiracy.
Describe this conspiracy.
Well, the Ku Klux Klan made a deal, or were trying to make a deal with Elijah Muhammad in 1960 in the home of Jeremiah X, the minister in Atlanta at that time, who was president minister in Philadelphia. They were trying to make a deal with him to make available to Elijah Muhammad a county, a size tract of land in Georgia or South Carolina, where Elijah Muhammad could then induce Negroes to migrate and make it appear that his program of a segregated state or separated state was feasible. And to what extent these negotiations finally developed, I do not know, because I was not involved in them beyond the period of December 1960. But I do know that after that, Jeremiah, who was the minister throughout the South, could roam the entire South and the Klan not bother him in any way, shape, or form, or would they bother any of the black Muslims from then on, nor would the black Muslims bother the Klan.
Now I understand something, because I made a mistake. I was wondering why no one ever messed with Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. They can stand up. Nobody ever made an attempt on their life or nothing. I'm like, why this joker all on television? Got public television stations where he could call folks devils and that. I'm like, we know who owned the TV. But what happened is 3 organizations wanted the same thing. The Nation of Islam wanted segregation. The neo-Nazis wanted segregation, and the KKK wanted segregation. The KKK owned the land in Georgia and South Carolina, though. So they come to the Muslims, Elijah Muhammad, and say, guess what? Let's cut a covenant. Let's cut a covenant. We will give you a whole county in Georgia and a whole county in South Carolina if you can induce the Negroes to go there. If you can induce, because we all want the same thing, all 3 of us. You want your own people, your own land away from us. We want to be away from you, Negro, right? So they cut a covenant. And they said, as long as you Muslims roam the country, they actually had IDs that they could show that says, here's who we are. We won't touch y'all. And y'all give us the same respect, the KKK. Anybody who's not a Muslim, we deal with that's black. But if you're a Muslim, we leave you alone, because we need for you to convince your people that segregation is good. And guess what? The Democrats at that time, under the old Jim Crow, was deep into the Democrat Party. So they said, on top of that, we will offer the Negro what he thinks he needs: food and housing. Food and housing. And the Nation of Islam was the one who convinced many Negroes to support this system. Support this system. So I'm gonna let one last video and we're done. Because this guy does a much better job than I can. Now he's not a Hebrew, but listen to him. He's a historian. I was showing this to my son the other night, and he was like, Dad, how could we be so deceived? Just my oldest son who was here, who flew out this morning. And I said, brother, I said, they did a number on us. I said, but keep in mind, they can't do nothing without the Hebrew support. Nobody can deceive the Hebrew unless they bring a Hebrew in to do it. So we'll end with this video. It's about 20 minutes, but just listen to him. He's not a Hebrew, but listen to him.
It is it's good to be on the program tonight. We hope that you be blessed and strengthened as you listen to this. I want to go into a conspiracy, deal with a conspiracy tonight that boggles the mind.
Now keep in
It's not
mind,
a conspiracy.
He's not talking about a conspiracy theory. He's talking about an actual conspiracy that took place. All right, so there's a difference.
Worldwide groups and names of organizations worldwide that we know nothing of. It is a conspiracy right here in America. It has to do with the civil rights movement, the civil rights days, as we look at some history in the United States of America, and seeking to figure out why things are as they are today and what has made them this way. And I think that it'll be a very interesting subject tonight as we look at it. You must understand this, that the poor has always been a commodity, something that somebody could use to make themselves wealthy and make themselves rich. It is a crime against God and a crime biblically to do so. The Bible tells us in the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 13, it says, whoso stoppeth his ears at the cry of the poor, he also shall cry himself, but shall not be heard. It tells us then also in that telling us that we should hear the cries of the poor. In Proverbs 22:16, it says, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want. And then the Bible tells us in Proverbs 22:22, rob not the poor because he is poor. Now listen, reading.
How do you rob the poor? Just keep listening.
In 22:16, he that oppresseth the poor, just the upper portion, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches. Poverty is a commodity. There are those who uses it in order to get wealthy. Now, whoever it is that uses poverty to make themselves rich, you must understand by the laws of human nature itself, they are as interested in eliminating poverty as the pharmaceutical companies are interested in eliminating sickness. Those who have profited and do profit off of poverty does not want poverty to go away. And that's why it don't go away, especially as we look into certain segments of society. The segment of society that's been targeted by two groups. We're going to talk about this conspiracy tonight that will boggle your mind pertaining to the civil rights days. That we can start it out with.
Now you will understand why the civil rights never accomplished what we thought it should have accomplished. We in 2020 now. We still talking about civil rights. Now you will understand who was in bed with who to cause the poor to remain poor.
In this, that with all things, you're going to have light and darkness, you're going to have good and bad, you're going to have righteousness and unrighteousness. So it is with the civil rights. Martin Luther King made it absolutely clear and made it plain in one of his speeches. He said, there are white snakes and there are black snakes. He said, I no more want to be bit by a black snake than I do a white snake. He knew the warring factions within his own movement. There was a Christian movement, a nonviolent Christian principled movement of which Mr. King was over. Now listen, please don't send me any information belittling the character of Dr. King. Okay, I mean, I know all of that. I've read all that. And if you do want to send me stuff belittling his character, then also send me something along with it showing what all King David did and just about everybody else in the Bible. You put a camera or a bug on any of us 24 hours a day, and every one of us is going to do something to give somebody else something to talk about. The fact that what Mr. King did was a Christian movement and Christian principles is absolutely clear by what he did. But inside that movement,
was also a militant wing. The Black Panthers, the Black Muslims, was all there as well. And there was not only a war going on outside with those groups fighting against the establishment that was then, but there was a war going on inside that was very deadly and very threatening itself between the Christian component of the civil rights movement, led by Dr. King, and the Black Muslim militant movement led by the Nation of Islam.
Now you got to understand, back in those days, Black people was partial on whose side they were going to be on. And so Malcolm X, along with others, just before Malcolm X became more knowledgeable, they came up with, because the Black people thinking what Dr. King doing ain't working. So Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam comes on the scene and says, Dr. King said non-violence. Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam says, by any means necessary, right? So Black people were going toward that because they were like, we tired of this non-violent, they sticking dogs on us and water holes on us. And what you talking about non-violence? So the Nation of Islam rises up and said, by any means necessary, which pulled a large Hebrew community into their movement.
Here in just a few minutes, by the mouth of one of the founders of the Nation of Islam, one of the founders of the Black Muslim movement, that he will speak himself and tell us. That person is Malcolm X. Malcolm X, in following his life, Malcolm X appears to be a man who was in true pursuit of spiritual upliftment. I think he was truly searching for God. He found out that the organization he belonged to was not only not a Christian or not a godly organization, but of his own words, he said it was a criminal organization, that it had lost all of its morals, and that it was murderous in a criminal organization. Of course, for this, Malcolm X was finally killed. I believe Malcolm was moving toward Christianity. I believe he was a decent man by all means and by all rights. By that, and with that, I would say this. The group that would succeed, that would take over, would be a movement that wanted unity and peace between the races, judged of our content of our character, not our color. Martin Luther King, Christian principles. The other side is seeking the will of a man. Malcolm discovered that the movement was not only a godly spiritual movement, but according to him was a criminal institution. And so it had no power to uplift the Black man, as Malcolm said. Truly finding this, that no matter how sincere the pursuit is, the only thing that is truly going to spiritually, physically, and emotionally lift man up is God through Christ. Where Christ is, there is liberty, true peace, true freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. If the Spirit of the Lord is not what is truly behind a movement, church, Nation of Islam, Baptist church, it makes no difference. If the movement is not truly centered, you can say God all you want to, but if it's not truly centered on God, then what you have is a man building his own kingdom, period. And that ain't gonna turn out good. It never has, and it never will.
Who's this dude, James?
People are texting me right now asking me the same question. I'll figure it out in a second. Because what I've done, I've changed the name of a lot of these videos because you can't find them. Yeah. Just so when they search your computer and look for names and stuff, I've already changed the names there. So I have to go and research again who it is.
Pilgrimage to find out about his faith. He found things that were very disheartening, and he came back and he got out of it. As Malcolm got out of it, he told us that there was attempts on his life, would be attempts on his life, and in fact, he said that he knew sooner or later they would, that being the Nation of Islam, would kill him.
That devil right there.
The conspiracy that I've talked about. The conspiracy is a conspiracy that Malcolm will reveal to us himself.
Now y'all know that joker is a multimillionaire.
A conspiracy, strangely enough, that took place between the Nation of Islam, the Black Muslims, the Nazi Party.
Now this picture is key because here's the part that we don't understand. The Nation of Islam actually invited the Nazis to their meeting. And this is a picture of it right here. They sitting on the front row.
Oh.
Look at the looks on their face.
Oh, wow.
This is at the Nation of Islam's meeting.
Why were they there?
They cut the covenant.
They're in alliance.
They cut the covenant.
It shows it right there.
This is an actual picture from the meeting. They sitting on the front row with their swastikas on their arm.
I'm gonna say that because I was talking about the swastika, but that's them.
Yeah.
And the Ku Klux Klan in 1960. Both sides, or all three of the Nazis, who was invited after the meeting to one of the major Black Muslim conventions, where they were seated on the front row, the heads of the Nazi Party. In 1960, the Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, and the Nation of Islam gathered together. Both of them wanting segregation. Both groups wanting the nations divided. All you gotta do is listen to Louis Farrakhan now, and you'll hear over and over and over, need to be segregated and divided. That's what the movement was. The Klan was willing to give up pieces of land in Georgia and South Carolina, was willing to give up land for them to form their own nation so that both sides could get exactly what they wanted. The Nation of Islam wanted segregation. They wanted the Black community, and the Klan wanted segregation, a white community. Both of them then offering to each other the help that would be needed in order to form this. And in this conspiracy, they would form a pact between themselves that the Nation of Islam, Black Muslims, could travel the United States, could travel the United States anywhere they wanted without fear of the Klan attacking them. Likewise, the Klan could move about without fear of the Black Muslims or the Nation of Islam attacking them. So they would have free protection to move. Now, a lot of questions began to be answered. It goes into the Democratic and Republican parties. Now, I have no desire to be a politician of any kind, and I'm not stressing politics at all. It's what they call themselves. I can't call them nothing what they call themselves, Democrats and Republicans. Now, what we have is this.
My son said the same.
Is we have a lot of questions that simply can't be answered. One of those questions is, how did the Democratic Party that was anti-freedom of the Black, the Democratic Party that withstood every single civil rights bill, it was the Democratic Party that created the Ku Klux Klan. It was the Democratic Party that withstood every civil rights bill. It was the Democratic governors that stood in the doorways of the schools in Alabama and Mississippi, refusing to allow Blacks to enter in. And all of a sudden, this same party all of a sudden becomes the party of the very people that it had oppressed for all these years. How in the world is this possible? In looking back over the history, you can't find where there was a violent overthrow of the Democratic Party, where the Nation of Islam or Black militants took the party over by force. You can't find it anywhere. 1961, 62, 63, these people are standing in the doorways of the schools to stop immigration. In 62, 63, they're opposing every civil rights bill that's passed. And all of a sudden, they become the party of the very people they vote. Lyndon Johnson, the one who became the president after Kennedy was shot and killed. Lyndon Johnson, for 20 years of his political history, never voted for one civil rights bill, voted against every one of them. Yet in 1964, Lyndon Johnson is the one who all of a sudden come into office after the conspiracy, after the meeting in 1960 took place. He comes into the office of presidency, and the people now that he had never voted to give us civil rights, all of a sudden he gives this tremendous welfare tail thing.
Ah, that's where Black folks get to see. They were like, it was a Democrat who gave us this. That's what is he giving you? What is he giving you?
Where did this come from? What was the true purpose of the welfare? Remember, there's a group of people that get rich, the Bible told us,
for keeping folks
poor. As Mr. Johnson was flying in to Washington on Air Force One, it was recorded that he said when he heard that Congress had passed his welfare bill, that he said this should keep those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Who is it that would make money off of poverty? Who is it would get wealthy off of poverty? Well, whites and blacks alike. You see, Jesse Jackson, his constituents, shapes. Well, they're still in the same shape they was in. according to him. They're in the same shape they was always in. But Jesse, he's a millionaire. Louis Farrakhan, to the thousands that he preaches to in his temples, all of them's in the same economic shape that they was in. But Mr. Farrakhan, he's a millionaire. Al Sharpton, his constituents, the one he's fighting for their help and their freedom, his constituency has remained in the same mess that they've been in. But he rides around in white limousines. Those, not a white mayor, not a Republican white mayor in the city of Detroit since 1960. Those that rode in limousines, tore the city up, where in Detroit you're kicking cans, still trying to find some food to eat. And the ones that ruled you come in black in white limousines, rides out of what they tore up now in white limousines. It ain't just white people gets rich off of poverty. As we look to the freedom of a systemic attack upon a group of people, you have to look at the truth of it.
Come on, boy.
Or you're wasting our time. Now, all of this is a problem because of the movement of unity. Any movement of unity.
Now, the reason I'm showing this is because I tell folks, I said, as Revelation 17 develops and nations become under control, there's one group of people that is going to harm worse than anybody. That's the Hebrew people. Even though it's going to affect everybody, the Hebrew people always suffer worse in any crisis than anybody. Think about coronavirus. Right now, they're saying the Hebrew is the #1 person that is affected by the coronavirus. Like the coronavirus is going out looking for Negro. I mean, you got to understand what the Most High has. See, because the Most High, when he gives you power and you give your power to your enemy, he says, no problem. Then your enemy should put a noose around your neck. Because I gave you the power to declare whatever it shall be, shall be. But you lend it's because you so disconnected from me, you would take the power that I give you and empower your enemy. That's why when y'all see me as irritated as I am with some of the things I speak, even public on Facebook or public media, know where it's coming from. I'm like, what are you doing? Because you're not just putting a noose around your neck, you're putting a noose around my neck. And I work too hard to get the noose off of my neck. So I don't need no Torah Hebrew brothers helping put that noose back around my neck.
He was unifier, trying to unify. That's not what the Klan wanted. That's not what the Nation of Islam wanted. Martin Luther King had to go. Martin Luther King was a Republican. They killed him. All of the presidents that were assassinated, except one, were all Republicans. You see, we began to see a clear light shining. And then there is the meeting. The answer to the questions of how these things come to be, how they came to be, becomes crystal clear. You cannot let a group of people prosper and grow in a unified society when you are wanting a segregated society. So the welfare programs was designed to keep perpetual poverty going, because it will make the Democrats, white or black, rich. It will keep Louis Farrakhan rich. It will keep Jesse Jackson rich. It will keep Al Sharpton rich. It will keep Barack Obama rich. And the Bible tells us of those that get rich off of the poor. So the agitation, the poverty has to continue. Why would a black group of congressmen be for a bill that gives barely enough to make it to a black woman and then takes it all away from her if she gets married? That guarantees poverty. Why would anyone seeking the betterment of a person give them a welfare program that offers just enough to get by? And then if you go get a job, you lose it all that day? It's designed. And it's designed by and from a conspiracy, a meeting that took place in 1960 between the black Muslims, the Nazi Party, and the Ku Klux Klan. That's why you don't see any violent overrunning of the Democratic Party, that all of a sudden, the party that withstood every civil rights, all of a sudden became the Civil Rights Party as the two sides conspired and come together. Now listen, Malcolm X was telling in a meeting that he knew that they were going to kill him. The reason he said they was going to kill him was because he knew too much and that they couldn't stop him from speaking his mind.
Seriously, the attempt was made upon my life because I speak my mind and I know too much. And they know that I was speaking what they know.
The next clip, Malcolm tells us that he feels personally responsible for helping to create what is now a criminal organization, the Nation of Islam.
I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization.
In the next clip, Malcolm talks about the black Muslim movement had gotten in possession of a man that was senile now, and that his children now had taken over the power, and all they were concerned about was their own personal wealth, their own personal riches, and their own personal security.
But it has gotten into the possession of a man who's become senile in his old age and perhaps doesn't realize it. And then he has surrounded himself by his children who are now in power and want nothing but luxury and security and comfort and will do anything to safeguard their own interests.
They want nothing but their own wealth, their own security, and will do anything to secure it. Those who get rich off of poverty will do anything to secure it. For as I said, a person who's getting rich off of someone else's poverty wants that poverty eliminated, just like a pharmaceutical company wants the sickness to be eliminated. And we will now reveal this conspiracy in the time and place it took place. Because right now this house is in bomb, and it's been bombed according to the black Muslims.
Do you know how long after we had this video started, that's
includes which each other are selecting. He then began to move into the conspiracy, how the black Muslims was now adopting the exact strategy as the Klan, in whom they had met and conspired with each other to say that's why the black churches are getting burned, no black mosques. That's like a man who can't claim himself to be the leader of the nation within his nation, which was treason, was left alone to build his nation. Now he begins to tell you adopted now the same strategy as this.
I heard the news today that Joseph, a brother found in the government in Detroit, 1952, made the statement that I found my own house. Now, I mean, this doesn't surprise me because I know that many of us left the Muslim movement is intelligent and moral. They have their own name, both intelligent and moral. That's their own thing for us. And now they're using the same tactic that's used by the Ku Klux Klan. When the Klan bombs the church, they say you can get. When they bomb the synagogue, they say that you bomb the synagogue. The Klan attack. And tonight, I'll tell you why the black Muslim movement is now adopting the same tactics against black people as now the exclusive method of the Ku Klux Klan. I want to point out too that I'm not talking about Muslims just to make white people happy, because I believe in anyone using against somebody else. I'm telling you these things because it has reached a point where I feel that black people in this country need to know what's going on. And I'm talking about an organization which I had a hand in building, which I had a hand in.
And because black people knew what was really going on. He knew too much, and they couldn't allow it. He then went on the same meeting and began conspiracies in the meeting between the Klan, the Nazis, and the
Now,
Black.
this meeting was crucial because you gotta understand that this is not why he was going into this meeting. He was, I don't know if he wasn't baited this question, but Malcolm had kind of personality. It's hard to, because I got that personality. Well, if you have that question, I'm gonna tell you the truth. But you gotta have wisdom. So a reporter asked him this question. And he said, I know you don't want to get into this conversation, but since you asked it, I'll go ahead and tell you. And he began to talk about what happened.
I know for a fact that there is a conspiracy between Muslims and the Lincoln people, Nazi, and also the there is a conspiracy. Well, they made a deal or in 1960 the most Carolina in the land at that time they were trying to make a deal with him to make a deal land in Georgia, South Carolina, where the Negro migrate, and then they get a program that get feasible.
So it was all about securing the mindset and securing the kingdom themselves. Period. The mindset is all unification has to be done away with. That's why Martin Luther King was killed. That's how come only the militant Black lives matter are in the Democratic Party. Anytime a Christian black man or black woman is introduced into politics, immediately they start calling them Uncle Toms. This is the reason why. This is how it happened. Now, this conspiracy that took place was for the control of the mind, and since people now have to be kept in constant strife in order to move any thoughts of unification, keep the war going so that there can be a nation where these people who will tell you how you can think and how you can't think can believe. He goes So there was a security pact set between the two. The security was very well recognized, very well known. That the Klan traveled everywhere throughout the country, not about black Muslims, retaliating against them, black Muslims traveled anywhere the Klan, and the Klan would follow. That's why black churches was burned, not black mosques. That's why Louis Farrakhan could continue to go on, but Martin Luther King couldn't. A conspiracy between the Klan and the Nazis. And the nation is this strong partner, a Republican from South Carolina, on his 100th birthday. Trent Wallace, a Republican senator, whip of the Senate, spoke a good word about a man on his 100th birthday. And they divorced the man from office because he said a good word about him, who voted for segregation. While at the same time, the one that was overthrowing the Democratic Party, Senator Robert Byrd, and was their leader until he died, was a leader of the Ku Klux Klan. Not just Indian, he was a leader of the Ku Klux Klan. Loud N-word on the Senate floor. Not protesting one Democrat, not one black in the Democratic Party ever protested Senator Byrd. But a man who said one good word about another man's 100th birthday, removed office. Now you understand why, don't you? I found out my mom was killed. He was killed by a man who was going to kill him. Louis Farrakhan, by hand. Because you see, in Louis Farrakhan's world, and the world that wants you in, black man, you think like one of them will think if you don't.
So he just said that Farrakhan was behind the assassination of that man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We knew that for a long time. People don't realize. People don't realize.
I thought
well, they both were. But people don't realize that Malcolm X was actually Louis Farrakhan's mentor. They try to flip it around. Well, Malcolm X was the one who had all the knowledge into that. Louis Farrakhan was never talking about that. Malcolm X, that joke was like he was going another level.
That joke was brilliant. Brilliant. Nobody puts fear in a Hebrew like another Hebrew. Remember what I told you? Because when he don't come to the multitude. That's why when a Hebrew approach you, you already know you're talk. Because we don't talk like that. We come at you, we coming at you. Ain't no more talking, bro. That's how we roll.
Nonetheless, there's conspiracies. That's what the conspiracy is about. The Klan, the Nazis, the Nation of Islam, and the Democratic Party. Now, there's a whole lot of things that should make a whole lot of sense to us. You're going to get to vote against this stuff, make this stuff out of here. Black. Or you're going to get what you want. But when you get it, you're going to be in the kingdom of the world where Mr. Farrakhan or his life is the ruler. And you will do as you were told to do, and you will think as you were told to think. I am giving you this.
So I want to share that because now you can understand. Because a lot of people, they ask, how in the world did we come to love these people so much? We know their history. Now you understand. I told you from the beginning, nothing can happen unless a Hebrew endorses. Because those guys put that in the Hebrew thing. So as we continue to walk through these scriptures, we still got 2 more sessions to go. Well, you're going to see how everything ties in. You're going to learn more and more about why Donald Trump came on the scene. You can watch a video that the media wouldn't even show where Donald Trump is actually telling you himself. But what the deal is, he's exposing everybody. But you won't find it on the media show. And you'll understand what you're up against and why they need this man desperately gone. And what he needs now for these 4 years, he's gone. It all depends on, do you have an extra 4 years to get your act together, or do you need to expedite your plan and get it done now? That's your question. I don't know the answer to that because I can't look at it. But I've been trying to get mine together for years now. Because I don't know what it looks like, but I do know this. It's going to cause hurt. Economically and everything else, it's going to cause hurt. I see grown people moving back out with their parents. I see all of that is going to have to happen. But just for them to sustain 20, 30, 40 years old, moving back to their parents. Because that's what the plan is. So, we're going to continue to hold this thing. We're going to get ready to close. Guys, we're going to close out now. Thank y'all so much. Well, we look forward to part 3 next week. Thank y'all so much for being patient. So, guys, let's get ready to close.
Yeah, that was really good. Thanks.